All right, so welcome back to Methough. We on episode 6. Today we're gonna be talking about Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Before we get started, I want to go ahead and let y'all know y'all about to get a F ton of Star Wars slash Methough content because I didn't plan this out right. A lot of it was my fault. That's why I'm just saying I didn't plan this out right. Where basically now I only have 4 days to get all of these out before episode 9 comes out, and I'm in the process of watching episode 4, so I still gotta watch episode 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. I got 5 movies I gotta watch before episode 9 comes out on Thursday, and I gotta get all these edited and uploaded before episode 9 comes out, because that was my intentions from the get-go. So yeah, your boys got quite a bit of things to watch and get done within these next 4 days. So I'm just letting you know, be prepared for just a slew of Star Wars slash Methough content just attacking your sub box. I apologize, but your boy, I fucked up, essentially. I fucked up. I'm just going to be real with you. But anyway, so let's go ahead and get into episode 2. So Attack of the Clones is something that I wasn't expecting to like as much as I did. Because just like episode 1, I only watched it like one time, maybe twice, and it was probably bits and pieces of it the second time, but it wasn't like in its entirety. So this time around, I watched it 3 times, and it wasn't actually what I was planning on doing. Like that wasn't the thing I wanted to do. Essentially, that wasn't my intentions. It just ended up happening, and I'm actually kind of glad I did, because this movie is far superior than like episode 1. Episode 1 to me is still just a waste of time. I don't give a fuck about the power raising scene. I don't fuck how much people try to say the power raising scene. That doesn't make it worth it. I don't give a fuck how much people try to bring up Darth Maul. That does not make that whole entire movie worth it for 2 goddamn scenes, or 2 sequences, better yet. No, I'm sorry, it doesn't. It's still a waste of time. Episode 2, on the other hand, because I watched it so many times, I learned to appreciate it way more than what I did before. Because, like I said just a second ago, a couple of minutes ago, whatever, I only watched that movie one time, and then the second time I probably seen it was bits and pieces. So with me watching it the 3rd, 4th, and 5th time and stuff like that, I started to notice a lot of things that I never really noticed the first time, or even the second time when I watched bits and pieces of it. And my appreciation for it went through the roof. Because unlike episode 1, there's a lot of things here that you can get attached to and that you can really just sit down and get invested in. The whole thing with Obi-Wan figuring out about the clones, and, just about the clones in general, just everything about the clones. That whole thing, that whole sequence, really dope. The whole thing about showing Boba Fett, and technically Boba Fett, but I was really trying to say Jango Fett, and how he was the basically the blueprint for the clones. That was dope. Seeing, Boba Fett as a kid, and, the whole thing about when Jango Fett get his head cut off, Boba Fett walks up, and after the whole battle, of course, and he grabs his helmet and he just like puts his head to it. So you're like, oh, that's how Boba Fett becomes, Boba Fett essentially. The whole thing with Anakin turning to the dark side, or starting to tilt towards the dark side, better yet, when he goes and slays all those Tusken Raiders. I think it is Tusken Raiders. And he just kills them all, women and children, like he says. That was really dope. The whole ending sequence, or the final battle, better yet, between Anakin, Obi-Wan versus Count Dooku, and then eventually Yoda comes in, but you get to see how he gets his forearm cut off. The whole sequence of when the clones actually come in and start, shooting up all the droids, and they save Obi-Wan and Anakin and Padme and all of that, and Mace Windu shows up. Like, all of that stuff was really fucking good, and it was really fun and very, very entertaining. Showing that dynamic and the chemistry between Obi-Wan and Anakin, because, they're supposed to be like good friends. They're supposed to be like brothers. So showing that like beginning stage of their friendship being like that was really dope, and how they bounce off one another, and the chemistry that they eventually have, which leads into episode 3, and that they talk about in the original trilogy, when Obi-Wan is like, yeah, me and your father were good friends and all of that stuff. Like, so showing like the beginning stages of that was really cool. Like, all of that stuff was good. And I enjoyed a lot. Like I said, I had way more appreciation for it than I did before. But the one thing that really hurts this fucking movie is really two things. But technically it's one, because it's this thing that the other thing resides in and it's a part of, and that's the romance between Padme and Anakin. The romance between Padme and Anakin is so fucking forced and is done so poorly that it's not even funny. And I have something that I'm just gonna put out there, to where this wouldn't have been as bad if it just would have had a few slight alterations to it, and episode 3 in the event still would have turned out the same. But the romance between them, or the beginning of their romance, that's the biggest thing. The beginning of their romance, in my version, would have been a lot more palatable than what the fuck we got here. The problem with Anakin and Padme's romance is that, first of all, it starts off really awkward. You're talking about Anakin is making like all these passes, and he's like saying all these things to her, and she's like, hey nigga, stop that shit. That shit's fucking creepy and you make me feel uncomfortable. Like, that's literally what she says in the beginning of the movie. Like, when he first makes a pass at her, she's like, can you stop saying those? Well, not the first one, but like one of the ones he says. She's like, can you stop saying shit like that? That makes me feel uncomfortable. But then for some reason, by midway through the movie, you know, they're rolling in the field together. Then by the end of the movie, she's just like, I fucking love you. And then literally at the end of the movie, when the movie's wrapping up, you know, at the end of the third sequence, all of a sudden they're getting married. It makes no fucking sense. It is so forced and it's so rushed that it's like, why was this even a thing? Because it didn't have to be. It didn't have to be. And once again, in my version, the same shit still could have happened in episode 3. It still could have been the same results, just without the forced romance in episode 2. And the dialogue for the romance is what really hurts this movie too. Now, I never really understood why people didn't like the sand line. I'm honestly, I still don't get what's wrong with the sand line. Maybe it was just Hayden's like delivery of it is the reason why people don't like it. But I really don't understand why that line is made fun of so much, because he's kind of right. Sand does fucking suck. If you've ever been to the beach, you know that you gonna have sand on you for days in places you didn't even know. And you're like, how the fuck did that even get there? He's not wrong. I don't know. Maybe it's something that I'm missing. Maybe it's just one of those things that people just like to make fun of it because they just like to make fun of your boy Hayden. I have no idea. But outside that one line, I really do agree. The dialogue between them, especially when it comes to the romance stuff, is very fucking terrible. And like I said, the romance in general is just fucking terrible. But that's the one thing that really hurts this movie, though, is the romance between them. Because if they didn't have that romance, this movie would have been a lot more solid. And I would even say that it would be a little bit closer to episode 3 to me personally in terms of enjoyability. But because you have to sit through the romance, and the romance does play a big part, and it is a decent chunk of the movie, it makes... once again, it makes the enjoyability go down quite a bit. Because it's one of those things of like, yes, you got everything else that I praised earlier in the movie, so you can sit down and watch that. But it's like, you got to get through all the romance parts in order to get to that shit. And then to really get to the climax of the whole thing, you got to sit through, you know, all the bullshit that came with, you know, them going to, not Tatooine. What's the Anakin's home planet, essentially. And that whole little sequence, and like, it's just, I don't know, man. Just like, I just don't like the sequences or scenes of them trying to be a couple or establishing and being a couple. It's just like, even scenes where it was good, like, because what I'm getting at is that, like, when he first comes back after slaughtering all the Tusken Raiders or whatever you want to call them, I can't remember exactly what they're called, but y'all know who I'm talking about, the people he killed in the, you know, when he's like, I killed the women, children, like, even that scene, because it's supposed to be a moment where they're like connecting, and they're supposed to like, it's once again trying to show the blossoming of their relationship and all of that shit. It's just like, just the simple fact that they tried to make that a scene like that, and her trying to understand him and trying to, it's just like, why do I got to sit through that? Like, just skip all that. Like, just let me see him do that and then him talk about it for 2 seconds and then move on. But her trying to, like, help him through it, and I don't want to see all that, man. Like, I can't describe how much, like, I literally can't describe how much I don't like those scenes. But anywho, let me get to the thing that I was essentially talking about, where this romance could have been a little bit better if they would have just went this route. So my route and my approach to how they could have done the romance between Padme and Anakin would have been like this. Anakin has no trust in Padme whatsoever because she's a politician, right? Because that's the one thing that Jedis always talk about, is how they don't have trust in politicians, right? To me, the romance should have went like this. Anakin does not trust her because she's a politician, so he has no affection for her whatsoever. And then you have Padme, who just doesn't have affection for Anakin at all. She's just like, yeah, I don't think he's cute. I don't like him, blah, 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 blah. Boom. That's how it starts off. So the point, or it starts off exactly what his mission was supposed to be, was him protecting her. But then throughout the movie and throughout the events, they start to see each other for who they are. And then they start to fall in love with one another. You see what I'm saying? And I know that sounds sort of the same, but it's not, because once again, Anakin starts off liking Padme from the beginning, and he's already making moves on her at the beginning of the fucking movie. In mine, throughout the sequence of events, that's when they would have gotten to know each other. So then, like, you can use the scene where he goes to try to save his mother, then he slaughters all those people. That's when you could have used that as the moment of her starting to see him as a person. And vice versa. That could have just been the scene where they started to see each other's people. Now, I know that's weird. It's like, Anakin just slaughtered a whole bunch of fucking people and you starting to fall in love with them. So I'm just saying that could have been the moment where they started to realize each other for who they are. You see what I'm trying to say here? I know that's very weird. It's like, hey, you just slaughtered a whole bunch of people. You're kind of cute. I'm not saying that should have been like that. What I'm saying is that throughout the whole movie, they basically should have just never seen each other as a romantic option, or just, as like a romance or whatever the case, however you want to put it, like as a person they're interested in. But just throughout the events of the movie, the closer they got, the more that they start to see of one another. That to me would have been a lot better. And then the real big change for me would have been at the end of the movie, they would have never got together. They wouldn't have gotten married. They would have never had all that shit. They would have never even kissed before they went into the little arena and did all that shit before the clones and Mace Windu and Yoda and all them showed up. To me, it just would have been by the end of the movie, they would have had a better understanding of each other. That relationship would have, blossomed, and people would have been like, oh shit, are they going to get together? And it like kind of hinted at them kind of getting together, and that would have been it. And then the movie would have ended. And that's all they had to do. That's all they had to do, because I'm going to save what could have happened with like my little storyline of their romance for episode 3, which I'm about to record here in a little bit. But that's how I would have approached it. It's just by the end of this, you could have saw the little sprinkles of them getting together, but that's it, and just would have left it there and wouldn't have pursued them getting married and all of that shit in literally one fucking movie. And then by episode 3, she's already pregnant. To me, that's such a huge like push in like, it's so forced. It's fucking ridiculous. It really is. But that's my overall take on episode 2. Not a bad movie outside the romance shit, which makes it a okay movie. But if you could ignore all of that, which is really fucking hard to, it's a pretty good movie, man. It's a pretty good movie. Pretty good movie. Pretty solid movie. To me, it belongs exactly where the title is. It deserves the number 2 spot. To me, episode 1 is just fucking trash. But yeah, episode 2 definitely deserves that second spot. I can't wait till we get to episode 3. I really can. I can't. Episode 3 is so fucking good to me. I even watched it again. And it still holds up. It still fucking holds up. Oh, but by the way, I meant to say this. There's one more, maybe two more things I want to say. The CG in this movie does not hold up whatsoever. The CG in this movie is fucking awful. Just like episode 1. It's not as bad as episode 1. Like, episode 1 looks really fucking dated. But episode 2 is damn near borderline dated too. The CG in this movie is really fucking bad, because I don't know why George Lucas went so hard on the CG for these movies, because they do not hold up in any way, shape, or form. Like I said, episode 2 is a little bit more palatable, but there's a lot of scenes in that movie where you just like, ooh. Like, perfect example is like when they're going after the bounty hunter that was trying to kill Padme, and then Boba shoots the little poison dart in the thing's neck, and like as it's transitioning over to being like the real creature and not like the woman that it was, disguised itself as, that looked rough. That looked really rough. The little alien creatures at the end, that looked extremely rough. Watto looked really rough as well. It, like, a lot of the CG in this movie does not look good at all. And I hate that. I really do, because it probably would have held up a little bit better if he would have went practical. Because like I said, I'm in the process of watching episode 4 right now, and a lot of that shit still holds up because a lot of it is practical. I mean, unfortunately, I am watching the altered version where he added a whole bunch of extra CG bullshit, which you can clearly tell. But I'll say that for the actual episode 4 Methough. I'm not gonna get into all that right now, but I wish he just wouldn't have went so overboard with the CG, because it really does date the movie a lot. And even if you're not as like critical as me, you could say, or pay attention to the details like that when it comes to movies and look at stuff like that, like anybody can tell that that's CG, because it looks so bad. It looks so dated. You know what I'm saying? So that's the first thing I want to say. And number 2, I forgot about this battle completely, but it was dope seeing my nigga Yoda fight for the first time. I know a lot of people didn't like his fighting style for some reason. I remember hearing something about that, like where there's some people, and I'm just talking about the internet in general, because, not everybody's going to like everything. But for some reason, there's people out there who are mad about the way Yoda fights. And I'm like, how the fuck do you think he's supposed to fight when he's that small? You don't think he's not going to bounce around? You think he's going to be fighting like how Anakin them do when he's literally that fucking small? He has no other choice but to bounce around. Like, I've heard people say that they thought his fight style is like stupid or whack or whatever. And it's like, how the fuck do you expect him to fight when he's that short? To me, it's awesome, because nobody else fights like that. So seeing him bounce around like that, especially to get up to the height of his opponent, is fucking dope. Like, what the fuck is wrong with y'all? But anyway, I just hit my hand on the desk. Hopefully y'all didn't hear that. But anyway, that's my thoughts on episode 2. Like I said, it's a pretty good movie if you take out all the bad romance shit. But because you can't, it's just an okay movie. Because, like I said, the romance, man, it really does hurt this movie. It really does.